about borrowed credibility, meaning how can we win big deals before we're well known? So, luckily, this is a little bit easier, I think, in today's industry because there's certain things that we can do to present ourselves online maybe bigger than we actually are, right? So that comes from a few different categories, but obviously just your online presence in general, your website and the appearance of it. But we can also go, deeper into it. So for one, verified profiles. Such a simple way to make your business look more official and bigger and better than it may be. Just verifying all your social media profiles. You know, takes a couple bucks. Twitter is $8 a month, or X is $8 a month to be verified. Facebook and Instagram is like $20 a month to be verified. And obviously just a verification process, but it makes a huge difference. So, just that alone, just having verified social media, it doesn't make you an official company, but it makes a huge difference, especially when they're all. So, if somebody can go to your website and then you have your social media listed on your website looks good, and they go to your social media and they're all verified social media accounts, and they're all uniform and they all have, the same, feel and saying the same things, that's huge. Just that alone, that's just you putting in some work and spending, $30 a month or something, and doing some work to verify your profiles and just make sure everything looks clean. It looks the same as each other. They're not all on different pages. Hopefully they've all been posting recently, so you don't look like a outdated company who just is not really around anymore and hasn't posted in a long time. So just that alone can make a huge difference, right? So the way your website looks, obviously, and the way your website functions is huge, but then also your social media, having it being verified. Now, also another category of this is reviews. You don't have to have a ton of clients to have reviews and to have good reviews, right? So they don't even necessarily have to be a client. So there's a lot of people who've opened a business and they have a profile on Google, or even if it's a restaurant or whatever, they'll have it on Yelp, and they haven't even asked people that they know to review them. They haven't sent the link to all their friends and family saying, please post a review, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they don't necessarily have to have bought the new product that you just released that you're looking for views on, or worked with that exact company, right? They can just give you a review. Hey, I've worked with this person before. They're a great person. Hey, this is so that's obviously the second. And that you can kind of build up as much as you want, right? You can, you know, you can get a ton of reviews. You could make it seem like you have tons and tons of customers and you're doing great with all of them and everything. So that's kind of unlimited as much as you want to scale it, as far as having other people give you reviews and pushing people to give you reviews. Now, we've talked about in this show before, entering that into your flow, into your process of prompting people to go give you reviews. So obviously friends and family and things like that, great. That's a gimme. Get them the link. Send, don't just say, hey, I'd appreciate it if you guys go give me a review. Send them the actual Google link to pull it up, or send them the actual Yelp link in a text and say, hey, can you please take 1 minute to go here and give me a review real quick? It'll really help my business. Most people are going to do that. Most of your friends and family will do that if you actually take the time to do it, and take the time to send them the link, so that it just takes 1 second. They go, oh, okay, I'll just click here and rate them, and we're good to go. And that can make a huge difference for your business. So there's that aspect of the ratings and reviews, but also we've talked about before, putting it inside the processes, right? Having different points in which your customers, or your staff will give you reviews through that process. And again, you're going to provide them with the links to do so, right? You're going to make it easy for people. So those are two ways that we can get the reviews going. And then, there's also like companies dedicated to getting you more reviews and, all kinds of stuff like that, right? So there's, deeper layers that you can take it to as far as, getting reviews goes. Now, we also talked on a previous show about, kind of reputation management type stuff and getting bad reviews off, which is also a whole other industry of companies that you can pay to get the bad reviews off, or get websites and blog posts about you taken down if they're false, and all that kind of good stuff. So the reputation management, that's a whole other industry of dealing with the negative reviews. But it should be pretty easy to start getting some positive reviews from friends, from family, from your first customers. Start implementing the links to give reviews into your sales process and into your follow-up processes and things like that. And that will spark more reviews. So that's a huge way. So let's picture this: you're not that big of a business, but you've taken the time to make a great looking website. You've made sure all of your social media profiles are verified profiles, and that they all look good and look the same, and they're all being posted on. And then on the review sites, you have a good amount of good reviews. Doesn't have to be a million of them, 5, 10, 20, even better. That could be done just from your friends and family and just from your first few customers, things like that. So just a regular business with maybe a general website, compared to, with basically no money, you having a nice professional website, having social media pages that match the designs of that professional website, and the social media profiles are all verified. And on the review sites like Google, you have, multiple reviews. I mean, you're light years ahead of somebody who's just trying to sell, especially somebody trying to sell without a website, or, whatever the case is. But that, I mean, we're talking about going from 0 to 90, right? The other 10% is stuff that has to be earned in a more difficult way, which is doing great business over the course of a long period of time. But if you can get to that point, you're 90% of the way there for enough credibility that you need for people to pull the trigger on your service. So remember, we don't need all the credibility in the world. We just need enough credibility to make people feel comfortable, because we should be offering a product or service that's good enough for them to buy, so that they want to purchase it. And if somebody wants to purchase it and they're just trying to make sure that, it's legitimate, they're wanting it to be legitimate. They're just trying to check and make sure. So they're looking for the positive signs, right? And when they see, just seeing a company, oh yeah, they got a great functional website, and all their social media profiles are verified, and they're posting on there, and maybe even got some followers. I mean, that makes you feel extremely comfortable as a consumer. And then what makes you obviously feel even more comfortable is going and seeing reviews on it. So people want you to be, if they want your product or service, they're hoping that you are legitimate. And when they're checking, they're not checking in like a negative way. They're checking to just verify before they pay that the good thing that they want, that they can do that, confidently, without having, thinking they're going to not get what they paid for, or they're not, they're going to get their money stolen, or, whatever it is. Right. So they're looking to be reassured. And so when you have a nice website, you have nice social media, and they're all verified, and you have some reviews up, that's all people need to just put their mind at ease enough to actually pull the trigger and purchase something that they actually want. Right. And then from there, you got to do your job properly, execute the product or service in a great manner to get repeat business, and then have it built into your system to ask those people that you did a great job on for reviews, referrals, these types of things. And then it kind of just becomes a cycle. Right. But people don't need much. You don't need to be on the cover of a magazine, or, some things that, entrepreneurs, sometimes we get things in our head. If I was famous, or if I was this, or if I had this cosign backing me up, or this, whatever it is, you don't need that. You just need, for when people Google you or look you up in any manner, that they can see, oh, looks professional. Social media profiles are all verified. So they're not like some random fly by night person. They're a real person. And they have reviews that they've, done good things for people. I mean, that's all you need to be able to say, okay, cool, here, I'll buy it then. I was already going to buy it. I'm just trying to look for, the credibility to make sure that when I buy it, I'm not going to regret it. And so we just need them just enough there to make them feel comfortable that they're not going to regret buying the product or service. We don't need a million great reviews. We don't need to be on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. We don't need our business to be listed in the top growing companies or whatever. We just need that basic, reassurance. And another thing that works for some people and some businesses is the Better Business Bureau. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but Better Business Bureau is great for any businesses, especially anybody facing credibility issues in some type of business where credibility issues are common. Where people tend to get kind of taken advantage of. One of my earlier business was in an industry where people got taken advantage of a lot. And so we were a member of the Better Business Bureau because it was important to us to show everybody that we're not, and to keep an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to make sure that people felt comfortable with us, because it was an industry where a lot of people did get taken advantage of. And so we said, okay, well, let's make sure we're standing out. And a great way to do that everybody understands, that's official, is the Better Business Bureau. And so, it's kind of costly. Some people are like, oh, it's such a scam. It's not a scam, but just like any other organization like that, I mean, it's only going to be as good as what you use it for, right? Of course, it costs a decent amount to be a part of it. So a lot of people just kind of skip out on it. And I don't think it's necessary for all types of businesses, but I do think if you're struggling with credibility, even if you're just getting started, I mean, some people are struggling with credibility just because they're just getting started, and that may be a shortcut. Maybe you don't stay, maybe you don't pay the next year because you feel like you're in a good place. But when you're just starting out, if you're looking for those things to make people feel more comfortable purchasing your product or service, to make you feel more comfortable putting yourself out there to look legit, I mean, Better Business Bureau is an easy way. Mind you, one thing about the Better Business Bureau that a lot of people don't understand is that you start off with an A+ rating, right? You put the logo on your website, you got an A+ rating. It's on, it's on you to mess that up when customers complain. And then when they complain, the Better Business Bureau is essentially a kind of almost mediation between it. And if you solve the issue, then it doesn't go on your record in a negative way. Like if the person had an issue and you said, oh, I got a Better Business Bureau complaint, but okay, no problem, you weren't happy with it, we'll refund you, then that complaint isn't going to hurt you. And so it's instant, I guess is what I'm saying. The credibility is instant by having it, and then it will go away after time if you're messing up and not giving customers what they want and you're getting in trouble with customers. It'll go down over time, but it is kind of a cheat code, because as soon as you pay, you now have the logo and you have the profile on their site, and people know that you're a part of the Better Business Bureau, and you have an A+ rating right off the bat. So it's kind of an instant way to, credibility. Okay, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get in some questions, because we haven't taken some questions in a while. So remember, you can always ask us questions. You can send them to @foundingwithoutfunding or @Kyle Hiersche. You can always send me questions as well. You can always drop questions in the chat. We stream this live on all the different platforms, so feel free to drop questions in the chat. And just a real quick plug here, remember, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to get the book if you want help starting or growing your business, or if you would like my team to start and grow your business for you so you can be a little bit more hands-off, you can go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. My team can set up your LLC, your website, your logo, your social media, your ad campaigns, and all that kind of good stuff for you. So if you're more hands-on and you just want help, go to foundingwithoutfunding.com to get the book, and that will help guide you through everything. And if you want to be a little bit more hands-off and have somebody handle it for you, my team can do that. If you go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com, my team can set up your whole company for you, start to finish, from the LLC paperwork to website logos, ad campaigns, all that kind of good stuff. All right, with that being said, let's get into the questions here. So question from Ethan: how do I approach someone bigger than me for a partnership? I think you just approach in the same way you would approach anyone. Just know your worth and your value. And I don't mean that in like a, make sure you don't work with people unless you know your worth. I mean, make sure you know your worth and your value to them, right? Don't come in saying, acting like you're doing them huge favors if you know that in reality you're not, right? So know your worth as far as when you're coming to negotiate. Yes, know your worth so that you don't get under, lowballed or whatever on your worth, but also know the limits of your worth. If they're a bigger company than you, if they're not going to benefit as much from you as you would from the partnership, just understand that and know that going into it, that's going to affect the way that they react and the deal that they make and all that kind of good stuff. But I would still approach them. I mean, there's nothing wrong with approaching any company for, some type of partnership. Let's see. Maria's asking, what if I don't have any results yet? Well, if you're talking about just results in general, as far as your uh, business, like I said, there's a few ways that you can kind of skip going through the long journey of trying to get customers and then hoping that they give you reviews, right? You can jumpstart that by sending the link to review you to your friends and family. You can kind of jumpstart the credibility by just paying to join the Better Business Bureau and getting that A+ rating right off the bat. So there's different ways that you can, um, you know, get those results. So that's just what you want to be looking at. If you don't have results yet, then those should be two of the things that you're looking at. Okay, Derek's asking, how do I get testimonials for a new business? So how do you get testimonials for a new business? Well, like I said, I think obviously friends, family, people like that, they can give you reviews. The more, the better. As far as from actual customers, talking about their experience of purchasing the product or service, I would recommend try to get your friends and family to purchase the product or service and then give it a review, right? But, you know, even if you're talking about just customers, even if you're a new company, just make sure that each customer you get does a review, right? It's even that much more important to stay on them and say, hey, can you please give us a review? Maybe even give them a reward of some kind. I do think people should be very review focused in the beginning. Now, here's another piece of advice is that, things are changing because of, AI and GPT and Gemini and stuff. People are using those to search more. But in terms of traditional SEO and Google rankings and things like that, seeding first is a big deal, right? The whatever articles and posts and stuff were seeded first, right? Time. And so the longer you wait, um, to get reviews, the more susceptible you are to bad ones, right? You want to get good reviews early and often and put them out there into the world, meaning on the internet, and have, hope that the different websites that your company is listed on, are positive instead of negative. Because what happens is if somebody puts out some bad stuff about you in the beginning, it's extremely hard to overcome that later. Because in terms of if they say that on a website or a blog or whatever it is, and if it's searchable, which everything is now, it can spell big trouble for a business because it'll always be that first seeded piece of info when people are typing in your company. A really bad review in the beginning can haunt you forever because it's so difficult to overcome that result that came first with the traditional SEO. Like I said, things are changing a lot with AI now and GPT and things like that. But traditional, SEO and Google search, the time, the amount of time it's been there is a huge factor. And it's really hard to overcome that with new reviews, new blog posts, new articles about your company. You can try to do that all you want, but a lot of the times, sometimes it will, but a lot of times it won't even push the other thing off. So very important. I really recommend people focus on getting great reviews and, from your first customers, just making sure every second is, do you need anything? Is everything okay? Could you please, and then when they're saying, yes, it's been a great experience. Thank you so much for helping me. And then you say, could you please give us a review? I'd really appreciate it. Just hold the hands of those first customers to where once you get a nice base of those, then you're not worried because you have all these posts out, all these reviews out, and everything is good. And then what you want to do is implement it into your system. Like I said, then you don't have to personally try so hard to get every review, but in the beginning you should be. But at a point, it becomes, okay, now I don't have to try so hard and personally ask people to review us, but we're going to put it in the process. So when they get this email, when they get this confirmation email or whatever, it's going to ask them to give us a review. Or when they get to this step in the process of my course, I'm going to ask them to give us a review, right? Whatever the situation is. So I think in the beginning, really push really hard to get that, credibility up, as far as getting good reviews, having your customers have great experiences, paying way more attention to them than you need to make sure that they're extremely satisfied, and then that you can get them to make a post about how extremely satisfied they are. And then again, build that nice little base up of that, and then just put it into your system and let it go on autopilot, right? You're going to have multiple points within your sales process or follow-up process that prompt them for reviews, and it'll just start happening. Okay, let's see here. What should I offer? Or excuse me, Kevin's asking, what should I offer someone with a bigger audience? I don't know. I mean, I think it goes back to just know your worth as a business, meaning not just to make sure you get what you deserve, but that the other person gets what they deserve, right? You need to be realistic with the terms that you're talking to any type of partners about, or, whatever. Let's see. Natalie's asking, should I partner with influencers? Yeah, great question. I mean, some brands that works great for, and some it doesn't. I wouldn't say uh, partnering with an influencer will give you credibility necessarily, because there's a lot of stories about how influencers have kind of burned their fans by pitching bad things and, trying to hawk bad products and services on people and stuff like that. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I mean, if it's a huge person that has a lot of trust in their brand, then obviously it would be a positive. But, I would say influencers are in that group. And again, you could make a lot of money by partnering with influencers or using influencer marketing, especially depending on the type of company you have and the type of way that you understand on how to use influencers to, market your business and make money. However, it does fall in that category of, in my personal opinion, I think that it's one of those things that's too intangible to quantify and to scale, right? That's why I'm always more of a fan of paid ads than, content, even though content is great and content should be made. Everybody should be making content out there, every business owner. But the thing that you can actually count on and scale up and build your business around and forecast money around and all that kind of stuff, that's on paid ads, right? That's on spend X, get Y. We know it works every time. We don't have to hope for a post to go viral. We don't have to hope that one of the influencers we paid makes a really funny post to it and it goes bigger or whatever, right? So the paid ads are what you can count on. And then the content and anything going viral should be just the cherry on top of, if something happens to go viral, wow, that's amazing. Boom, your sales boost for that month and all that kind of good stuff. But you can't live month to month like that and say, oh, well, dang it, this month we only sold half because none of our posts went viral this month like they did last month, right? So that's why I'm a bigger fan of paid ads than relying on like influencers and just content. Okay, Olivia's asking, how do I turn small wins into bigger opportunities? Oh, I think that's kind of just part of the bigger business picture of just, taking the small wins and trying to, snowball them into something bigger. And, it also depends on how well you can portray, what those wins were, and portray to somebody else, some type of partner or something, that because you have those wins that you can, partner with them to make a bigger win. Okay, Ryan is asking, what's the biggest mistake people make when networking? I've been in a lot of industries where kind of the core of it is networking. Most industries I've been in, the core of it is networking. And I think the biggest mistake people make when networking is probably more so just not networking, or networking just for themselves. They're out there telling people about them, but they're not actually networking, right? It's a two-way thing. Networking. It's not I just went and met a bunch of people and pitched my stuff to them. It's networking, as in making friends, building a network. And you don't do that one way. So I think some people are so one way about it. They're just like, I'm just trying to meet everybody I can and push my thing onto them, as opposed to just being open to making connections and to being interested in what other people do and say and could bring to the table. I love networking and I love conferences. I always have, back from, music conferences to real estate conferences, mortgage conferences, business conferences, whatever it is. Not only have we put on some of those conferences, but we also like to attend them. I've always attended tons of conferences. I love networking and I don't think there's any substitute for it. And I'm a super online guy, right? I'm a super online person since I was a child. Every business I've ever had is, online based, even the real estate ones. And so, but there's never going to be anything to replace digital that can replace the meeting people in person and networking. And any business person will tell you, you could know somebody for years through the internet and work with them, but it's not until you have a drink with them or have a meal with them or just hang out with them. It's a totally different story. And then you could go back to being online and stuff, and you're on a whole different level. You're on a personal level. You're on a more informal level typically. And those are the people where you can actually get things done with. Right. There's a reason why companies pay money to take people to dinner and, things like that. Right. This is actually how things get done. And you're actually going to answer the phone for the people who took you out to dinner, or the people you had a beer with, or the people you spent a weekend with at a conference. These are important relationships, and those are the ones that last. And those are where you can both cash in favors. Right. At that point, now you're on a personal level and you both know, hey, this is, my person over there at that company, or this person does this service or whatever. If I ever really needed that, I would hit them up, and they know exactly who I am. And we had a great time together and we respect each other. We're talking about what each other does. That's why networking is so important. So I'm really big on networking. So I'm glad you asked that question. All right. We'll take one last question here. Let's see. How do I maintain long-term partnerships? Brandon's asking, how do I maintain long-term partnerships? I think that's, it's easier if the businesses are bigger, in my opinion. If there's multiple people working together on both sides of the company, I think that's a lot easier than like a person to person, because then you can get personal and feelings can be in it, and one of the people could rub the other people the wrong way, and then it's just an argument or whatever. But if there's multiple people at each company, working together, and the partnership is actually benefiting everyone, there's typically not this personal thing or a way to just kind of get angry about things. And but if the situation, if the partnership isn't working for one side of the situation, then again, if there's multiple people at the company, it's not a hostile thing. Everybody, we're going to have a meeting and, figure it out and stuff. But when it's like one person to one person, it becomes kind of like a hostile thing and can become argumentative. So I think long-term partnerships just make sure when everybody's going into it that they know what they're supposed to provide and they understand what the other person's supposed to provide and they stick to it. That's the biggest reason why partnerships fall out, is people just don't stick to their part of what they said they were going to do. All right. With that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So again, remember foundingwithoutfunding.com to go get the book that will help you start or grow your business. If you'd like to be a little bit more hands-off and have my team actually start and grow your business for you, you can go to yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com. My team can create your LLC, logo, website, social media, ad campaigns, all that kind of good stuff. Yourdigitalbusinesspartner.com if you want my team to set up your business from start to finish. And also, if you would like to be a loan officer, you can join my team as a loan officer by going to newmlo.com. If you're already a licensed loan officer, you can join our team. We provide you with leads, some of the best compensation and the most programs in the industry, as well as some of the best rates. And if you're not licensed yet, we can actually get you licensed and bring you on board. If you don't have your mortgage license yet, you can go to newmlo.com to get your mortgage license and join our team. So newmlo.com if you're interested in becoming a loan officer on our team. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode of the Founding Without Funding podcast.